Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Oviedo City Council meeting. It is Monday, June 17th, 2013. It is approximately, or actually exactly, 6:30 p.m. All members of council are present. If we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And why doesn't our grandma? I was thinking if I should say it, and then I said I'll just go for it. Councilwoman Drago has a new granddaughter born this weekend. So. Councilwoman, which was? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And since I let this out on a national broadcast across Oviedo, how is everyone doing at home?
Mom and baby are doing fine. Elizabeth Charlotte, Grace is her name. She got 3 so she could cover all the family members. They're doing fine. They're coming home tomorrow.
She'll have no time to do nothing.
No, I'm the grandma, not the mother.
Well, congratulations to everybody.
Thank you.
Moving along, invocation. Chief, are you up for it this evening?
Good evening.
Good evening, Chief. How are you?
Very good, and congratulations.
Thank you.
If you would like to join me, go to the Lord in prayer. Father God, we thank you for this great nation as we look to celebrate our independence right around the corner. Lord, we're reminded of our servicemen and women that are serving on the front lines as we speak, that you would comfort their families while they're away, take care of their needs, and bring them home safely to each and every one. Pray for our public safety. Pray for all of our city employees who work so hard for this community. Pray for our elected leaders. We pray for our president and Congress and the difficult decisions they have. And we offer tonight a special prayer for a new member of the Drago family, that you would afford them good health and comfort. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Chief. Moving along, we have no ceremonial items this evening, so our first action item is the approval of the minutes of our regular session from May 20th, our regular session from May 28th, and work session of May 28th, and a work session of May 29th. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
No.
Seeing none, call the vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to items 3 through 7. These are on our consent agenda. What is the pleasure of council?
Mr. Mayor,
Deputy Mayor?
motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by the councilwoman. Deputy Mayor, any questions?
Nope, looks good, Mayor.
Councilwoman?
Looks good.
I have no objection, but we need to go back to public comment to it.
Yeah, I know. I said that. I always miss it on this new agenda. We'll get to it. Let's just do consent.
No big
I'll
deal.
bounce back. Any comment on consent?
No.
Councilman Shank? Just one item that I'd like to have a brief discussion. We won't pull it off, but Mr. Wyatt, if on item number 7 on the Center Lake, if you can just come on up for a second. Yeah, we know we sometimes have unforeseen things that come up during construction. We just want to ensure that when we're complete, that rather than worrying about time being the essence, that this is being done correctly.
Yes, sir. Understood.
You know, just whatever has to be done, just do it the right way. It's the centerpiece of the park.
Yes, sir. And if we have to come back for more money, we'll be in front of this body.
Okay. That's all I had.
Bobby, just since you're up here, is there any schedule impact to either the site work or the project as a whole for this?
None that I have been made aware of. Okay. 30 days.
30 days on the site work? Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Bobby.
Yes, sir.
Motion on the floor is to adopt the consent agenda as presented. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now I'm going to move back to the public comment portion of the meeting. I do apologize. I did skip over that. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to address council on any item not on our agenda this evening? Seeing none, we will close the public comment portion, move on to public hearings. Item number 8, we have none. First reading of ordinances. We have 2 first readings of ordinances. Our first one is item number 9, ordinance number 1570, the People's Gas Franchise Agreement. Mr. Cobb.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 1570 is a request for the City Council to approve a non-exclusive natural gas franchise ordinance with People's Gas, a division of Tampa Electric Company. The non-exclusive franchise specifically allows People's Gas System to operate the natural gas system in the city's right-of-way. All natural gas systems must also be operated and maintained to city standards. The franchise also requires insurance and franchise fees. The Ordinance 1570 renews the franchise for an additional 10 years. It has been reviewed by the staff as well as the city attorney, and the gas system is in good working order and all franchise fees are current. Tonight, the City Council is asked to read the ordinance by title only and schedule a public hearing for July 15, 2013. On the dais tonight is a copy of ordinance number 1570. There were some last-minute changes that were made at the request of People's Gas. Those changes have been reviewed by our Public Works Director as well as our City Attorney. They were deemed not to be significant, so you can proceed with the first reading tonight and then scheduling of the public hearing.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Mr. Groot, would you please read ordinance number 1570 by title only?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance of the City of Oviedo, Florida, granting to People's Gas System, a division of Tampa Electric Company, its successors and assigns, a non-exclusive natural gas franchise agreement and prescribing the terms and conditions under which said franchise may be exercised, making findings, providing for conflict, severability, and an effective date. That's the ordinance by title, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Groot. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to schedule a public hearing for ordinance number 1570 on July 15, 2013, here in the Oviedo City Council chambers at Oviedo City Hall, 400 Alexandria Boulevard, Oviedo, Florida, 32765, at approximately 6:30 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving along, we're up to ordinance number 1571, amending Chapter 34 of Pensions and Retirement for the Oviedo Firefighters Pension Fund. Mr. Cobb, I'll turn it over to you, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, the City Council is asked to conduct first reading on the ordinance number 1571, which is amendments to sections 3469 and 3470 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Oviedo. These amendments are similar to the ones that you did earlier that dealt with the police department pension funds, and it's basically to bring our Code of Ordinances into compliance with the recent changes to Florida statute as well as the Internal Revenue Code. Section 3469 is amended for the definition of credit service, as well as to revise language in the investment section of Florida Statute Chapter 175. And Section 3470 is amended. It amends the maximum pension to comply with recent changes to the Internal Revenue Code relating to tax-qualified pension plans. The amendments clarify the language required by the Internal Revenue Code and are mandatory amendments that must be made by September 30th of 2013. It is recommended that City Council read the ordinance by title only and schedule a public hearing for July 15th, 2013.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Mr. Groot, at this time, can you read ordinance number 1571 for us by title only?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance of the City of Oviedo amending Chapter 34, Pensions and Retirement, Article 3, Firefighters Pension Trust Fund of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Oviedo, amending Section 34-69, amendments to Chapter 175 Florida Statutes, amending Section 34-70, Maximum Pension Fund, Maximum Pension, providing for implementing administrative actions, providing for a savings provision, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date. May I ask the ordinance by title, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Groot. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to schedule a public hearing for ordinance number 1571 on July 15th, 2013, here at Oviedo City Hall, Oviedo City Council Chambers, 400 Alexandria Boulevard, Oviedo, Florida, 32765, at approximately 6:30 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
A motion in multiple seconds. Any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, call the vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Mr. Cobb, this evening on our original agenda that came up, there was property development out on 419, M&I Homes. Did they pull that off the agenda?
I'm sorry, sir, I don't ever recollect that being on the agenda.
Okay, that might have been my mistake. All right. Is that going to be on at the next one?
What that one is, we're going to catch it up. We're still waiting for the comprehensive plan and the zoning map amendment. We're going to do everything all at one time. So we have to wait for the comprehensive plan amendment to come back from the Department of Economic Opportunity, and we'll have the second reading of the comp plan amendment, second reading of the zoning, and the preliminary subdivision plan all at the same time.
For out on 419?
Yes.
Okay. So do we have any date in mind for that?
Once we get it back from the state, then we'll set the schedule.
All right, so 6 weeks, 6 months, 2 months, 90 days?
Yes, at least, I would think.
Property will be posted?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The big orange signs, guys. All right, moving along. We're up to item number 11, resolution number 2670-13, Economic Development Incentive Agreement for Oviedo on the Park. Mr. Kopp?
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, City Council is asked to consider a request to approve the utilization of impact fee credits and water and sewer capital recovery charge credits within the area subject to the master land use plan for the Oviedo on the Park development to pay impact fees and sewer and water capital recovery charges in any category within the area that is subject to the Oviedo on the Park master land use plan. When you adopted your Fifth Amendment to the acquisition agreement, we set forth provisions within that Fifth Amendment to allow the developer, one thing was we granted impact fee credits. We granted transportation impact fee credits, recreation and parks impact fee credits, as well as water and sewer capital recovery charge credits. And those credits were for infrastructure improvements that the developer was making to the city's system. The Fifth Amendment placed certain conditions on how the impact fee credits could be utilized. Primarily, the recreation and park credits could be sold to third parties for anywhere within the city limits, and the transportation impact fee credits were actually limited, that they could only be sold to third parties within our Seminole Economic Enhancement District. What this resolution does, it expands the ways that we can use the impact fee credits. However, it places a limitation that it can only be used within the Oviedo on the Park development. We provided a copy of the master land use plan for you. I believe it was attachment 2 of your memorandum. But what it allows is, let's take our transportation impact fee credits, for instance. It would allow a developer within Oviedo on the Park to utilize those credits to pay law enforcement, fire and rescue, and administrative facility impact fees. That would be a use that would be eligible within the Oviedo on the Park development. So it gives us more flexibility on how we can use the credits, but it also places a limitation that it places a geographic limitation that we can only use them within Oviedo on the Park. Tonight, it's recommended that you adopt resolution number 2670-13. I'm available for questions. We also have Mr. Groot. Mr. Groot worked with Mr. Smith, who is Mr. Kavanaugh's attorney, on the development of the resolution. They're both here, can assist you also with questions, and Mr. Kavanaugh's here as well. So in case council has any questions, it's recommended approval.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. At this time, I do not have any request to speak forms on this item. Is there anybody who did want to address council? Seeing none, we will close public comment, and we will move on to the pleasure of council.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Schenk?
make a motion to adopt the Resolution number 2670-13.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilman, you are out first. You have the floor.
Another, I think this is, it's nice to incentivize, it does a couple of good things, and one is that incentivizes growth within that area, makes it a little easier to utilize the credits that we already had given, just makes them a little easier to use, and incentivizes the Oviedo Avenue Park area, so that area will help hopefully start growing right behind or right with the first phase. So I think this is a great way to, a little tweak to what we first decided to do, but a nice little tweak that makes a big difference hopefully.
Great. Anything else? Councilwoman?
I agree. I think it's a nice little tweak. But I agree with Councilman Shank. I think it's a good idea. I think it's stepping outside the box a little, and I think it's going to help the area quite a bit.
Councilman Britton, anything?
No.
Deputy Mayor? Mr. Cobb or Mr. Groot, I'm assuming, as you said, this has been fully vetted, reviewed, because it is a little bit outside of the box of what we usually do, and I have no issue with it. I think it's a great way of being able to use what was given. So are there any other comments or concerns about it, or are we good?
In my opinion, the city is fully able to proceed, and the resolution's been fully vetted from a legal perspective. And I might add that Mr. Clay Henderson, Mr. Smith's law partner, is also in the audience, and he's been of great assistance in terms of the Brownfield area issues. So there's substantial legal support for this resolution if the city council in its discretion wants to approve it.
Great. Thank you for that explanation, Mr. Groot. Are there any other questions from council? Any other comments from anybody in the audience? Nope. All righty. Seeing none, we are going to call the vote. The motion on the table is to adopt Resolution 2670-13. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 12, discussion item. It is State Lobbying Services Agreement. Mr. Cobb, I will, let's see, it looks like you put it on the agenda. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for City Council to discuss our state lobbyist services provided by Gray Robinson, PA. February 18th, the City Council adopted Resolution Number 262813, awarding RFP 12-16 to Gray Robinson. Per that resolution, the city manager negotiated a continuing services agreement and a work order for services. To date, those documents have not been executed. However, a draft work order was attached with your agenda memorandum. What we'd like to do tonight is to get council direction regarding the work order and the scope of services that has been provided through the draft work order, and make sure that we're approaching these services in the way that City Council wishes us to do so. And so we wanted to get your consensus to make sure that this scope of services is what you're looking for them to be providing for the city.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Councilman Shank, I will turn it over to you first for discussion.
Sure. It kind of morphed. I think this, there's no contract that we're working off of, so I think it's a time to take the opportunity to look at what services that the firm is actually scheduled to do. When we sat in our work session, made it very clear that the lobbyists work under the direction of council, and I don't think they've gotten clear direction from us. So to me, I think we should, they've done a great job in the 2 months that they've billed us for. They've worked up in Tallahassee for us and helped move along transportation and some other areas for us. But then it looks as though the remainder of the contract, I'm going to say, resembles an ongoing contract more versus a specific contract that gives specific items for them to work on. I really don't have a problem in engaging I know we've kind of switched in that work session. We switched our direction and disengaged an ongoing contract, and I've never had a problem with an ongoing contract with the lobbyist based on the fact that it's hard to measure and quantify the type of things they do for us because they're usually ongoing. They don't have a dead-end time frame of, well, 1 month worth of work or 2 months worth of work. Sometimes, whether it's working on grants for us, these things can take a month to 6 months to they could be still helping us a year later if we need them be. So I think, to me, it's, we definitely pay them the $8,000. I know we paid $4 already. Pay the next month's bill that they have given us for the 2 months work that they've done in Tallahassee for us. But then either engage them, ask to engage them into a long-term contract and get a new, I forget if they've given us, I know we've gotten, as part of our RFPs last time, there were multiple directions that they all gave to us. But either re-examine that issue or I think we need to then otherwise give very clear direction what they're doing for us before they continue doing any more work for us. One way or the other, but either engage them in a long-term contract or look to engage them into a long-term contract or give them very specific instructions that we can understand and work with for a specific basis.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor? Well, I agree. I mean, we've had some great successes, not only with these guys, but with our past state advocate. And I think to Councilman's point, I would agree. I think it would be better, the former city manager wanted to try to have these work order type things to save some money on, just addressing the specific needs. But as you look at what's being spent on this, it might be to our advantage, to have Mr. Cobb, if council agrees, to go negotiate and have these guys, on our retainer like we've always had. This way, they're there. We know what it costs. They know what they're getting, and then closely work. To have Mr. Cobb and his staff closely work with them, because I think in the past, some staff didn't feel comfortable working. I guess calling them often, and we did a lot of that to tell them what we wanted. So I would be more comfortable instead of this work order thing. I think it was a good idea when the former city manager brought it up, but it's really not working based on what we've seen. So I think they would be more comfortable. I'd be more comfortable. Here's what you get, the flat fee. Here are the things we need, and somebody tasked at the city to stay working with them closely to make sure that we're utilizing them as much as possible. So I think that would be a better way than this work order thing. Just my thoughts.
Long-term contract.
Long-term, correct.
Anybody else?
Brian?
Yes, sir.
What is the status of the contract now?
The status of the, I believe, Mr. Groot has executed it, and it's back with us, and so we'll be getting the mayor's signature so that it'll be fully executed. Once I have that, I'll execute a work order with them, and want to make sure we find out, even if we're doing a retainer, we still want to do a work order with them, and that way we can process a purchase order, make sure everything's all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, so we've got everything
When you
taken
say
care
a
of.
work order, what does that mean?
It's a document that basically, well,
There's a
like
copy
in
of
your
the
packet.
contract in here.
It's like in your packet tonight. We gave you a copy of the work order in your packet. It spells out the work that'll be done and how they will be compensated.
That's
And,
what they've already done, though, right?
some of it, yes, sir. They've already done some of it.
Okay. I'm just kind of curious, if they do this work and we pay them for this, we're basically a time and materials contract. We can issue task orders when we have something for them to do, right? And get a price for it?
Yes, sir, we can.
I'm just not sure why we want to go on a retainer if we don't have a list of specifics for them to accomplish. I think that's why we set this up, was to let us go, if an issue comes up that we need to have their services, we issue a task order or a work order, whatever you want to call it, get their estimate for that work, and then it's basically a mini contract. We hire them to go do that work. And therefore, I think the goal was to actually save money rather than having a long-term retainer when there may not be any actions for them to be working on.
Anybody else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman?
I have to agree with Councilman Britton. I had the understanding that we were going to hire the lobbyist to do a specific task, whether it was just the one thing like transportation, I'll use that as an example, and not go into that long-term contract, because that's what we had been doing for a long time, and we were trying to cut back a little bit, and just have some target tasks that we want to get accomplished. And then go out and say, okay, Robin or Jerry, how much would you charge me to go for this and help us get this? And then look at that price. So I guess I was a little thrown off with the way it was a monthly thing, and I'm not sure that that's what we had talked about in the beginning. I think we got a little bit sidetracked and confused over the whole thing. So I think we need to get it straightened tonight and really have some clear vision.
Okay. Go ahead.
Just to clarify, I think I heard Councilman Shank going where I was going. You know, if you look at the contract that's here and what was I guess, I don't know if it was executed or what was spoken about, you're talking about an amount of $20,000 when all's said and done for these tasks. Well, the other state lobbyist we had was like 30, and we had them for the whole year. I'm afraid as we go on task-by-task order that this is actually going to cost us more. I think it was a good idea when you had it, but when firms have a clear direction, what you want, and they're working on it over the year, and they don't have to have so much interaction to clarify each thing, I think having the continuing contract, long-term contract, works out to be cheaper. And if you read the memo here, I'm going to spend 20, I'm going to spend another 10, and I can have them all year, and we can call them whatever we want. I think that makes more economic sense. I just wanted to throw that out, Mayor.
And that was, I'm not advocating it around, throwing out the, here's the why when we were discussing it. Either way, whichever way we end up is fine with me. It's just a matter of this contract is actually a hybrid to me. I will. I'm just, that was my point, is it is a hybrid contract that we have, and it's unsigned, first of all. But we have one definitive thing that I think, first of all, it was supposed to come back to council, so we give direction on what was being done. We see the one thing that we all know about is transportation and advocacy while up in Tallahassee. I think my concern is the next 3 months and how this lays out. And where do we go? So that's my concerns, is really where we go from here versus what was done. I'm okay with what was done on the, as Councilman Britton says, that if we go to contractual basis, there's definitives what we do. But I think this contract kind of crosses over both, and that's why I'd like to rather get a handle on it versus let it continue on this, because I see it as really a continuing work contract for 3 more months, and I don't see a lot of difference.
Now, what are we, we're in June now, this runs through the fiscal year, so, I understand what you're saying, Councilman Hankin, but the legislature is out of session. I don't see them going to advocate much of anything between now and the end of the year, and then I'd have to look at the task order and see what they've actually done. I don't see them doing a whole lot of work on stormwater issues, and statusing grant applications. I don't see that being a big hitter. So, Brian, as far as invoicing goes, how much have they invoiced, and how much remains to be done on the original contract?
With this work order, and one of the things, I guess let me explain one thing. We have a contract, and the contract is a general services contract. It's a standard city contract, and the contract, it basically sets forth the agreement that the city will utilize this firm for state lobbyist services. This, what you have with you tonight, was the first work order
For $20,000.
For $20,000. It was for 5 months of service. If you look at it, it's dated March of 2013. So if you think 5 months, that would be March through August of 2013 is what it would be. And the program was to do those things that are listed on page 2. They have billed us for $8,000. They've sent us 2 bills of $4,000 each. We paid the first bill of the $4,000. However, I've held the second bill of $4,000. I've held that so that we can get the contract executed, get a work order executed, so that we can get everything back to where it should be. But one of the things that I did notice about it is, yes, a number of the grants that are listed in here, these final decisions have already been made. And so there may be a few FERDEP grants out there. We do have a planning grant up at the Department of Economic Opportunity that we would like them to help us with. It's a technical grant with our land development code rewrite. But there are a couple other grants. It's one of the things that we had our directors meet with them and got them engaged. And they are now looking in their own shops as far as the types of grants that they would be looking for. Because obviously these grants, the decisions really have already been made on them. So what I believe is that the $8,000 that we've been billed for was for the work that was done in Tallahassee. And so that would leave what do you do with the next 12?
Well, I'm not sure that's the way this contract reads, and maybe Lonnie can help us. It's a $20,000 fixed fee amount. Maybe they're just dividing the $20,000 into 5-month increments, irregardless of what they've done for us. Because I don't see a whole lot of work for them to do between now and the end of the summer.
I wish I could help you more. I talked to our lobbyists, seems like early in the session as the contract was being crafted, and I haven't been involved since. But my sense is that they would say that all work has been done and all fees are due. That's what I would understand at this point.
That's the way I read this, rather than it, and that's really fair that you ask them for a price for a specific task. I'm not sure if we understood that on council. I thought maybe we were going to get a little bit more detail, but to come back and put them on retainer doesn't make much sense for me at this point. Maybe we can discuss it next year as a new way of doing business, but it doesn't make sense at this point to put them on retainer.
Well, what I'm hearing is a communications issue between the former city manager and the council. It appears to me that there was expectations for how this was going to be handled. Those expectations were not met. Brian, you are correct. There was a folder in my box for my signature of this contract this evening. I left it with the clerk. She has it. I don't feel, and I don't get the feeling, that any of us are blaming in any way, shape, or form our advocates. It wasn't their issue. They were tasked with something that was not our objective by the person in charge to task it. So it was is a breakdown in communication, because everything that was said this evening is everything that our anticipations were with going to this type of a contract. What I would like to see happen, if it is the pleasure of the council, is obviously we need to honor what we said we were going to do. Even whether we signed it or not is irrelevant. Our word's our word. And then in the budget process, Brian, make this an agenda item on how we handle it or want to handle it next year. And be that a full-time contract at a reduced rate, so we have them on retainer, and throughout the year when we need them, or whether it's task order as it was originally intended to be. We will give staff clear direction, and we will operate under that premise going forward. The direction, in my mind, was clear the last time. How it got non-communicated, we'll call it, I am not sure. But obviously, there are 4 members up here who weren't sure of what was happening, why it was happening, how it was happening, and a better job needs to be done of keeping everybody informed of what is happening and how it's happening. And obviously, if it changes, not a problem, we just need to be made aware. Would council agree with that summary? We got to pay them.
Well, we're going to execute the contract, is what I understand, but I do also understand we're not going to go forward with any other work until we go through the budget process. Correct?
Well, we have them on retainer until, according to what our city manager represented to them, for another 3 months. We might as well use them if there is something we can use them for. But
Yeah, but we're on retainer for specific tasks, not
Grants, et cetera.
If we give them a new task order, that they're going to give us a new proposal.
Well, Mr. Britton, what I would recommend, if you're comfortable with going forward with this work order, then what I would recommend is that we sit down with them and go through the scope of services. Obviously, the work for the County Road 419, State Route 426, that work's done. It was accomplished. The work, they did monitor the stormwater bill as it was going through the legislature. I think that was pretty much
that close to passing.
that close, right? And actually, they actually have some ideas about how we can go, how we should be approaching the legislators outside the session. They have some ideas about that because now's when they're actually crafting their bills. The other thing, as far as the grants are concerned, I think that's where we really need to do some work with this scope of services. The way I look at this work order is that it's not executed, even though I know some of the work has been done, but it's not executed. I think we can refine the scope of services. And if there is something that you all have identified that we need to be working on between now and August, then obviously that's something that we should put into this scope of services. Now, like I mentioned before, we do have one grant hanging out there as far as the Department of Economic Opportunity, but there may be some other grants that we're moving forward and with that we'd like to move forward with and need their help in Tallahassee with. And if they can provide that between now and August, I would like to have the opportunity to engage them on it.
So that's fine as long, are you saying that there won't be any increase in the contract value?
That would be my sincere hope that between now and August, that no, there would not be any.
Okay, so I don't have a problem with that either, but
Okay.
the way I read that,
When you look at how
piece of
it's
paper,
based, I mean, frankly, I would like to see if we do go the work order route. If the council, if we next time and we decide we want to go the work order route, I would like to structure it more like we do with Mr. Jones, because we have a budget, we list out the different services, and each service has a cost. And when he completes that, that's what we pay for. And so I'd like to restructure it that way. But I think there are some things they can help us out with between now and August. I'd like to engage them if we can. And pretty much it would be taking out the grants that are already done that we can't have any influence over and replacing them with others is what it would be.
and you, I don't have any insight into new grants, but you still have staff come up with recommendations?
We've got a couple out there that we're looking at. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mr. Britton.
And that's, as you know, like I
I
said,
was going to see if anybody else.
sorry, I'm unhappy with the situation, but I think that's a way to wrap it up. That was my goal, is how can we wrap this up a little bit better and get more definitives? And I like Brian's, look at the future. We get itemized bills of what we're looking at and what we want to get. And the other thing, I think, again, going back to the work session, is that before that's created and done for the next time, that council, again, they work for us, is what we said in the work session. And none of this was supposed to be done without council looking at this and putting this together so that we understand and put this together and give it the blessing before it goes to the lobbyist. But I think it's a good compromise. It gets some specific work hopefully done for us that we can see versus things that are already completed or don't matter at this point because the decisions have been made. Thank you, Brian.
Anything else from anyone? Brian, are you fairly clear on that?
Actually, I just have one question, Mayor.
Why don't you,
If
yeah,
I-
just let us know what you heard, and let's make sure it's what we meant.
I think you're okay with us proceeding with Gray Robinson through the 5 months of this work order.
Yes, we'll live up to whatever agreement was put forth by
Right.
those in charge at the time.
And I think if we are able to identify, I think you've given us the leeway to go through and to revisit the scope with them, especially from the grant perspective, and to replace some of these grants with grants that we want to pursue between now and August. My question to you is, do you wish for us to, if I am able to work this scope out, do you want me to bring it back to you for blessing, or can I just move forward with them with the scope as is?
Council, move forward?
Move forward. You've got the direction. You must have it.
Move forward with no
Additional money.
cost.
Right, no
With no additional cost?
Right, if you could take that, what's the balance due, and stretch it out even further, based on what you may need,
Right.
by all means, do that. I don't
Okay.
think anyone's saying that by August it has to end. If you're looking at the balance of the funds due, and there are, let's just say, 3 tasks, one now, one in December, and one in January, well, go forth. But I think what I'm hearing, Brian, is just, if there's any additional funds needed, well, then, obviously, at that point, we would like to have it brought back to us.
Okay, that would be fine.
Brian, if you do that, would you let us know
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
what you changed it to?
Yes, I think that would be a good idea if I can stretch it out. If I could get them to stretch it out to September, that would be even better. Yes,
Yeah, maybe, see what's out there, what's workable. I don't think you're going to have that issue when you have the conversation.
Okay.
All righty, is there anything else? Great. Brian, we are up to your city manager report.
Thank
You can take your time with your copious notes, go ahead. Some habits will never change, will they?
I know. I actually do have a couple of things that I do need your help with tonight as part of my report. As you know, you've scheduled a work session for July the 1st, and the primary purpose of that work session is for our architects, Borelli and Associates, to come back and give you some sketches or elevations of the new community center based on the input that they received on May the 29th. We've been contacted by Borelli and wanting to make sure that they do a good job for you and not repeat some of the sins of what they saw at the last work session. They've asked if they could have an extension and if we could reschedule the work session to a later date in the month of July. Preferably.
I'm sorry, Brian, I was looking at something that just popped up on my screen.
Okay.
Which consultant?
Borelli, our architects.
The architects for the community center?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
For the
thank you.
community center. They are going hard at it to prepare the designs for council based on the input, but they just feel that July 1st will not give them enough time to put everything together, and they've asked if we could reschedule it for sometime later in the month. I do know that I was looking at the 29th as a possible candidate, but I do also know that Mr. Britton is out on conference during that week, I believe. But
That's correct.
I wanted to relay that to you. What I would like to do, though, and even though I know that I'm not going to be able to attend the meeting, I would like to ask you to keep July 1st as a regular meeting. Make it back to a regular meeting. And the reason for that is that Mr. Boulware has received some communications regarding our lighting grant for Oviedo Sports Complex. We did receive the $250,000 grant, and one of the things about it, it carries a condition that we've got to spend the money by August 30th of this year. So we've got to move rather quickly to get everything in place so that the contractor can come in and actually do the improvements. And so what we're asking is that keep your meeting as a regular meeting on July 1st so that Mr. Boulware can bring forward the necessary resolution so that we can get the contractor moving, get the parts, get all the pieces ordered for the lighting improvements, and then that way we can meet the deadline for the lighting grant.
So essentially turn July 1st from the work session it was into a special meeting for one item, or turn it into a regular meeting in case any other items come up?
Well, it would be there would be a couple of items for the lighting grant. There's
Okay,
gonna be
so we'll
more
turn
than
it into
one.
a regular meeting in
Yes, sir.
case staff has anything else that you need to pass by. So
Right.
I guess the question is, council, we're going to move it back to 6:30 PM regular meeting or 5:30 PM special meeting?
6:30.
I'm sorry, 6:30, is that what I heard?
6:30.
6:30 PM regular meeting, July 1st, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
Could we, Mr. Mayor, we put Borelli on, if he's not going to be that long, could we fit him in on one of these, like the July 22nd work session? Could he do that and kind of?
Well, what do you have on July 22nd?
I believe that's budget.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't advise that. But
Okay.
if you wanted to
Okay.
take July 23rd or July 24th, you could do something like that. And that way it would, when I looked at our calendars, I did not see anyone with conflicts on either of those dates.
Anybody have a problem with that? 23rd or 24th?
23rd on, 24th is good for me.
24th is good for you?
One
Councilman?
more thing.
Wednesday? Yeah, that's good.
I'll just wait for Mr. Britton. Councilman Britton?
Let's go month. Twenty-third looks okay.
24th, I think.
24th?
I believe Councilman Shank has a conflict on 23rd.
All right, 24th is good.
I'm good, Brian. Can you add that to all of our calendars?
Yes, sir, we will. We'll schedule a work
Will
session.
Borelli be ready for that, Drew? Okay, sounds good.
Is that going to be 5:30?
That'll be 5:30, because that'll be a work session.
July 24th.
Okay.
All right, so July 1st, so we're all clear, that's back to a regular council meeting at 6:30. The main objective will be lighting grants, but there may be other items on there as staff feels necessary. July 22nd is our kickoff, or really just a continuation of the budget workshops. And then July 24th, which is Wednesday, 5:30 PM, we'll have an additional work session for the community center.
Okay. Mayor, I have one other item for y'all to take a look at. If
Your
you'll
report.
notice, on the dais tonight, we had for you a brochure regarding the Veterans Tribute. We also have some designs, which you've seen before, which were from Dick Lathrop, regarding the Veterans Tribute area within Center Lake Park. We have a committee that has been working together for quite some time now, primarily members of our the American Legion, as well as city staff, and then we also have Mr. Bill Starmer, who is donating his time. He's a local architect and donating his time. And we've been working with Dick Lathrop, but also one of the key members of our team is a young named Mr. Matthew Felder, and Matthew is an Eagle Scout candidate. Matthew has made our Veterans Tribute his community service project, his Eagle Scout project. Matthew actually is the one who put together the brochure.
Matthew did
very
a good job.
Very talented young man. What we're asking tonight is that we'd like to set up a booth at the 4th of July event for Matthew to be able to tell people the story about the Veterans Tribute and also hand out his brochures. And the brochures are set up basically so that people can begin to give donations to the project. Have him work with Chief White and Mr. Boulware to go tell about the designs and the things that we're trying to accomplish as far as the Veterans Tribute. The other thing that we'd like to do is to be able to, with council's consent, be able to take these drawings and make them larger, obviously into display boards, to be able to set up in his booth to help him out. But and then, of course, obviously we'll make multiple copies of the flyer as well. But we wanted to make sure that you all were okay with it because the 4th of July is a city event, and we wanted to make sure that you all were going to be developing his Eagle Scout project. And so that's the other thing that I wanted to get your direction on tonight.
Council, anybody have any objections?
You know me. Lars, inclusion on the Wall of Honor, is there a criteria set for what that is? Because that's my first concern is somebody's going to put their loved one's name on there, and there's no criteria for inclusion on the Wall of Honor. And what that means and what the criteria would be to be included on the Wall of Honor. And if that's not set yet, then it's tough to ask for people's names and stuff, because then you're going to make people mad pretty quickly when they write down their loved one's name, expecting the name to be on there, go to look at it, and it's not there, and they don't understand why.
We've had some great conversations with the Veterans Committee, and I think what was extremely valuable to us was the participation of the American Legion representatives, because it was exactly these sensitive issues that we discussed. In addition, having Winter Springs having gone through a similar process, and Bill Starmer being the architect, he was in all those meetings as well. It was suggested to us that we don't set a lot of parameters on the names. They should be from the Oviedo region, not just specifically the Oviedo community, because there are those who, frequent and do business in Oviedo, and they have ties. It was all one big community, as it was settled as the Lake Jessup community anyways. So all those names would be included. It was also suggested that we not worry about vetting out honorable, dishonorable discharges and those type of things. And most memorials don't pay any attention if there were those type of problems that surface. So you take the names, you vet them out. You do want to make sure they were service members. Our affiliation with the very large Veterans Project in Orange County, Orlando, is helpful because they've already assimilated a pretty exhaustive list.
Can I help with, I think,
Yes.
where he's going? Subject to confirmation or something, maybe?
Oh, I don't care.
Right.
I'm just, again,
Yeah.
I want to make sure that
Something
they,
on there that just-
something confirmation and,
Just something along that line.
Well, and the design as well. You notice yours says draft on it,
Right.
and we're going to add a little language to the brochure that says this is a conceptual design.
then we
It's just
need,
subject to a little adjustment.
Deputy Mayor pointed out there's no address if somebody wanted.
No, that's going to be fixed as well. There's about 6 items. We were hoping to have Matt here tonight and have this brochure. We got it for the first time last Friday and just haven't had time to make the little tweaks. But there's a handful of items to the brochure that will also change.
what's the status of the 501c that we can go directly to that versus, I know we want to have C status at that exact moment, but as long as we applied, it'll be retroactive. So as long as we apply for the C status, why don't we just go straight into the 501c3
Well,
rather than through us and have a separate
Yeah,
budget account?
we spoke to the finance director as well. There's Jerry.
Yeah.
We're running this as a city project, and we're going to establish a city account for this. We weren't going to run it through a 501c3 or a not-for-profit other organization. It's just a lot cleaner that way. We are really the ones that are doing this memorial. It'll turn into a element of our Parks and Recreation and Parks Department to maintain long-term as well.
Does Winter Park have a clear committee? Again,
Winter Park.
I'm looking for, like I said, the sensitivity is my biggest concern.
Right.
Do they have a clear committee who's,
Winter Springs?
Yes.
Well, Winter Springs has now refined it, and it is down to a city-managed project.
Right.
It was a partnership with a Rotary Club,
Right.
and they were part of the donors that helped raise funds for their project as well. And we expect, we had a good conversation last Friday, as a matter of fact. We didn't want to isolate this to any one civic organization. We really feel like this will get better buy-in if every organization in this community gets a chance to participate and not just one or two exclusive groups.
Chief, just to Councilman Shank's point, the confirmation, you get a name, you have a process to verify this person was in whatever branch or whatever to follow up, just to make sure.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, and there's and we're learning as we go too.
oh, no.
There's
that's all right.
caveats to.
We haven't, not that there's any need for, like I said, I just wanted to make sure that that's going to be done, that there are procedures for that
Right.
kind of thing, and that
Yeah.
the city manager, whoever oversee, again, if it's going to be completely ours,
Yeah.
then that we as a city have those procedures that
Right,
we
right,
thoroughly understand, because like I said, I don't want there to be hard feeling or anything.
right,
Like I said, I don't have the guidelines to tell you, it's more just saying, as long as you do,
yeah,
and as long as you feel comfortable, and the city manager feels comfortable that the guidelines are going to be in place, that this is the right way to set it up, I'm good with that. That's the only, like I said, I just saw that and said, as long as there are guidelines, and the same thing with the 501c, is if we're setting it up, then there might be opportunities to, again, I'm a guy who always looks to, if we can double that money somehow, or half that money again, I'm always looking for that angle to say, if it's a 501c, and there's other money out there to say, we're putting up $1, somebody donated $1, I can get 50 cents or another dollar to match that. That's my goal in reality, is always to do that.
Well, we were waiting for you to ask how much this was going to cost.
How much is it going to cost, sir?
Oh, we're not prepared to answer that question, I'm afraid.
Mr.
We
Chair,
think, go ahead.
I wanted just to touch a little bit upon, and I know I talked to Mr. Groot earlier about this as well. We are in the process of getting the Friends of Oviedo established, and Ms. Barrington Nix out of their office is navigating through the different IRS regulations. Mr. Boop and myself and the mayor sat down and went through an extensive survey with her not long ago to get her so that she could begin that process. I did speak with Mr. Boop. He is going to set us up. He set up a fund within our accounting system initially. Once Friends of Oviedo is established, yes, this would be a project that people could get involved with through Friends of Oviedo. So, but and she's right. It is more of a city project, but we agree that this would be a perfect project that Friends of Oviedo could get behind and people could donate through. And we would be able, Mr. Boop has already said there is he already understands the ways that we can transfer that fund into the 501c3.
Yeah, as long as they get their tax, we're saying tax exempt, as long as they're good getting their tax exemption, and I'm fine with that, like I said, but the real goal to me is always get somewhere else and we can leverage that to get our more money based on somebody's donation. That's the whole reason for the Friends of Oviedo.
Okay.
That's
Anybody have anything
Can I
else?
ask a quick question? Maybe
Sure.
venture into a stupid area, but maybe I just didn't hear it right. Chief, did I hear you say you weren't going to look to see if there was an honorable or dishonorable discharge?
At the present time, no, Mr. Groot, we're not. And at the advice of the Winter Springs representatives from the city of Winter Springs, it's a very difficult process anyways. You can't always find that information. I think that we'll get a pretty detailed list from the Veterans Memorial in Orange County, Orlando, and they've spent years compiling this list as well. What makes it a little more challenging are the ones that are added from this point forward.
Where I'm going with that is, do you not think it's wise to establish a policy that if you know that there's a dishonorable discharge?
We can still have those discussions, and I'll meet with Brian.
I think Lonnie's I thought Lonnie was involved in these discussions, but being his service, the background.
Why don't we keep Lonnie in the loop?
That's what I'm like, I think that would be a great thing is to have Lonnie. involved
Lonnie
in
has a
these
lot of
discussions.
interest in this project, and I think there's a trust that his judgment will be, well used.
We will do that.
One question I have, though, I don't mean to continue on Councilman Chank's conversation, but you said you're going to put names on this from the region. Now, let's just assume, my grandfather was a veteran, World War II, and I put his name down. We're from New York. Does he end up on our memorial?
Yes, you're an Oviedo citizen, so it would extend to your extended family.
Okay, and I have no issue with all of that, but I think we've got to clearly, that's where he was going.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, my father served 20 years, and I thought the same thing. I'm going, I could
We
then
just need to
theoretically
clearly
put my dad's
define-
name on there, and I don't know that that's what I would want to do.
Right.
Personally, if that's the group decide, but I go, I'm wishy-washy on that one personally, but
I don't have a problem recognizing, anybody who has served our country, preferably honorably. But I do think that before the next couple of weeks, you guys need to refine those rules on adding a name, or maybe take that off of it for now, and have something, provide us some information, and we'll see if the name could be added, type
Right.
of thing. And then you could always send a letter back to that person and explain, yes, you are eligible, or no, you are not, and here's why. Or something along that. It's going to be very difficult to turn people down. I agree with you. But,
Well, and that's based on the advice we've received from others who have done these memorials.
yeah.
It can be very difficult,
Oh,
very
yeah, That
difficult.
was my concern, is it puts you, the group, us, everybody in that position of
Right.
trying to answer a question, and if we don't understand thoroughly, kind of, or if they're not getting a response, why they might not be in the law, et cetera.
Understood.
Let's just try to clarify that as best you can before he's out there with a table and
Yeah.
We'll do
That's
that.
my, is maybe,
I
if we're having
volunteer
it out there doing
Councilwoman
that,
Drago for that table.
You can see he's done a wonderful job.
He's done a phenomenal.
He took the actual granite that you see on the insert there, and you see that on the back or on the front. We're really happy with, but there are some tweaking to the brochure that we're
No,
going
I
to.
appreciate the effort that he's done, and I really, as an Eagle Scout project, I think it's phenomenal, that part of it. Like I said, and especially now you're saying it really is going to be ours as a city, as we have to make sure that we understand what we're all getting into.
We'll keep you up to date.
Thank you, Chief. I think you got a yes on the booth,
4th of
a
July.
yes on the big pictures, a yes on the brochure, but we need to clarify.
We'll get some policies in
And have
place.
those little line taglines that he kept saying, the disclaimers that just
We're
say.
putting Drew Bulloware's email on the bottom of the flyers.
Well, we nominated the councilwoman. All in favor? Aye. Brian, anything else?
No, Mayor, that is all I have tonight.
All righty. Moving on to our communications and reports.
City attorney.
City attorney? Sorry, thank you.
I was just going to mention two things, Mr. Mayor, and that was, one, that there's still no decision in the Marion County Ocala case. It's just, I don't understand that. And the other thing was, I was going to report on Friends of Oviedo, and we are moving forward with that. The filling out of the IRS Form 1023 is a detailed process, but the good news is the name neither has Liberty, Tea, or Party in it, so things might go smooth.
We should have a chance then, huh?
I've never been involved in that process, and I know the councilwoman has, and Councilman Schenk in the past. And I must say, Ms. Nix did an exceptional job explaining the process to the three of us, and the volume of paperwork that she had, already, and it had just, I don't know what that was, and it had just, she was just starting the process, and the questions that the three of us were asked, and the three of us are sitting here, we're just like, well, we're just temporary guys to get this started, but they have to be answered correctly in order for this thing to, who's beeping? In order for this thing to go forward, and it was just amazing. So she did a great job.
Good.
And I'm sorry, that was me beeping. Lonnie, do you have anything else?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right. Well, let me just check with the council. Now may I move on to our communications and reports? All righty.
You take the skip, just like skipping the public comment, you
Well-
roll by.
I am, in my defense, I am going to say, if you look at the way the agenda is set up on this thing, it's very easy when you scroll this thing up, that the public comment doesn't have a little bar or anything next to it to identify it. It's just,
And neither does the city manager, I mean,
no,
the city attorney.
attorney, yeah, they're just there on this thing. So I think in the future, what I will do is throw a highlight across those two, and that way I don't miss them. But thank you for catching that. My report, I will be quick. We have a couple of things coming up before, well, I guess we are going to meet again now, but since it'll be a special meeting, we'll just, or a short meeting, we'll announce them. We have the July 4th celebration up at the mall. Drew, that's starting at 5 this year? Why don't you come on up here? Give us the lowdown, the scoop, the skinny, when the fireworks are going off, what events we're having. It's over at the mall where it's been the last couple of years, correct?
Yes, sir. 5 to 10. Fireworks. We also have new entertainment this year. We do have some new people coming back. We've got some old people who we've had in the past.
Blues Brothers people?
They're returning again for a second year, but we also have
They're a lot of
some
fun.
new music, basically Motown and some stuff like that, new stuff coming. So we're looking forward to it, and staff's working diligently right now, preparing.
How long's the firework?
Should be about a 20, 25-minute show.
Great. And you're going to do the same thing out in that field, so you can sit up close and personal to it?
Yes, sir. Yep, and about 9:15. Yeah, somewhere right around between 9 and
You
9:15.
gonna work on the evacuation plan?
Yeah, that was my next,
We are diligent working with the police department, and we're trying to do it to where we push more people east to get more people to go out over the bridge instead of everyone going out back to, yeah.
well, what I think the complaints were in years past is, we have 2 lanes of traffic that can flow. I mean, we need to keep 1 lane as the through lane and 1 lane so people can keep moving out of the parking lots. I mean, that's, if you're unfortunate and have to park in the back there by, Macy's, you might as well bring a tent if you're going to be there a while.
Yes,
And
this
I
is
realize
true.
that is quite a challenge for our police department, but
They are looking to try to get more traffic, though, by splitting. We had a lot of traffic all go back to
Target
Redbug. Yeah, Redbug. So we're trying to get more traffic towards that bridge and then disperse that way. We
Well,
feel
maybe we
like
have
if we
to
can
do-
get more movement that way, we can,
again, I'm not a traffic expert, those much smarter than all of us on it. But, if you go see Red Hot and Boom and you want to leave, you're only leaving in one direction. There is no option.
this is
you know.
true.
So,
And
they'll
have it
send you to a pop
Have it
cut
printed
if
again
that's the way it
beforehand,
is.
which way, how the exit plans beforehand, so that everybody knows, these are the 2 ways, this is the way you're going, that's it.
But I'm sure that with proper planning. Ron, why don't you bring Billy back for the day? We'll get him off his motorcycle. Tell Billy we need him just for a, special event, and bring him back. I'll bet you he'd love it if we asked him. Want me to call him? Huh? He can come back for the day. Thanks,
Fly,
Drew.
man.
Any other questions for Drew on the event, guys?
Looking forward to it.
Thank
Yeah, we are. We hope to see everybody out there. It is growing into quite the exceptional event. I mean, despite a little bit of crowd getting out, what do you expect at that type of event? A little bit of patience goes a long way. So I'm sure we'll learn from last year. And Chief, come on up. 2-year anniversary, I believe you have to announce. Farmers Market? Is that June, whatever the first Saturday is, June 6th?
July 6th?
Now, Chief, I took that bag all over the Caribbean with me. I put those pictures up there for you.
Thank you. And any of y'all taking vacations, want to take a farmer's market bag with you and capture a picture of it, we love to post it on our website and have the Furthers travel bag. I'm not sure which one that is yet. You've probably come pretty close. Yes, first Saturday in July, which will be the 6th, I believe, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., 2-year anniversary. We'll have a little celebration there with our Leftover Biscuits band. The market is just phenomenal. We're up to 33 vendors, I believe. Even the past 2 months where we've had some 33 vendors. We've had some real rough downpours in between, and the place was still packed. And that's kind of unheard of. When you get a forecast of rain in the morning, usually your event is less attended. But some of our vendors had their best day on the rainy day. But we're excited. It's been fruitful. It's been very good, and we're happy to be there.
You got a next generation in the Leftover Biscuits I saw last time.
Yes.
Yes.
On the
Where'd he
front-
come from?
Front page, I don't know. I have no idea. Just showed up and.
I got the chief up there. I got to tell you a funny line you gave me. I was on vacation the same week the mayor was, and I was somewhere in Belize or Mexico, wherever we were, and heard the weather was bad. Called up the chief, and the sirens had just gone off. He goes, "You can hear him down there?" I said, "Oh yeah, we hear him."
We were upstairs in the city manager's office trying to vacate downstairs quickly.
How's that working out with you now that you're doing it a different way now from the?
Not bad. We had to upgrade the computer itself. Our what's 5-6 years old now, but the main computer crashed, so we had to get a new computer, and it had, of course, had new operating system, so we had to get a software update, but it's fully functional. It has never not worked. It has never failed. All 10 devices have always worked, and I'm working on a couple other learning mechanisms to help, so I don't have to
Every time we're
stay in
out
the
of
city
town,
all the
whether
time.
it's on a business trip to D.C. or wherever, doesn't the sirens always go off when we're not in town? It's so weird.
Well, now we know why you need to stay.
No more vacations or trips for nobody.
Chief, I didn't call you. I was floating around in the Caribbean. You were in charge. Thank you. That's the end of my report. Councilman Schenk.
Mayor, could I just, one
Yes.
little thing, Mr. Bowler just told me,
Did Councilwoman Drago get to declare martial law when I was gone?
we tried. The 4th of July event, Mr. Bowler got his dates mixed up, and he gave you the times for last year's event. This year's event's actually going to start at 4 o'clock, not 5 o'clock. So
So 4 until 10.
it'll be 4 to
4 to 10.
Yes.
Well, Councilwoman will be there in the booth the whole time, so.
Drew just
Picking on
wanted,
you tonight.
Drew
I
just
will
wanted
be
the
with the
place to
mayor.
itself for an hour.
Councilman Schenk, the floor is yours.
I had a chance to, the Chamber monthly meeting was this month, and they had Blake Bortles from Oviedo High School and UCF there, and spoke very nicely, gave a great speech. It was very nice to have him there. It was pretty well attended.
How was Metro playing?
I didn't go. Didn't go, sorry. Had to cancel that one.
Hey, Bortles is
Tough
looking
day.
more and more like an NFL quarterback.
It was funny. He
looking good.
You know, they had his handler there with him, so it was quite funny. He made a little joke about, they're asking him something about Facebook, and he goes, well, and he mentioned the woman's name. He says, if I put something inappropriate up on Facebook in probably about 10 seconds or less, she'd be texting me right back saying, get that down immediately. And she was sitting going, yes, I would. So, but he was very good. It was more of a question and answer because he had a couple of other places to go. And my son saw him out in the mall and was, as my daughter said, starstruck when he saw him. He was just, that's Blake Bortles standing there. So it was quite fun. He did a great job. Memorial Day celebration, we haven't been together in a meeting. We've been to many meetings, but not council meetings since that. It was a great celebration. We had a great time. All the hard work that everybody did was very good. And that's it. I visited the YMCA last week, too. I saw Kurt, and he took me through the YMCA, and I hadn't been there in a while since my kids were there. And I was shocked that on a Tuesday or Thursday at 11 o'clock, the place was jumping. I mean, it was packed to the rafters. Things going on. So, very nice to have him give him a tour. That's it.
Kurt and staff have gotten together a few times on different synergies
Right.
between the Y and the city. And when I was away, I have an email from him to set up the meeting with Mr. Cobb and Mr. Bower again, so we'll see where these may or may not lead.
He said he was going to call that, exactly.
Deputy Mayor, you're up.
No, you guys touched on some things I was going to say. Good.
Councilwoman. Sorry.
I just, that's all
Yeah,
right.
we know. You haven't been sleeping. You've been holding that
I
grandchild.
haven't been sleeping, no.
She is cute as a button, by the way.
Isn't she beautiful? She really is.
There's a picture of your grandson kissing her that Chuck, I think, put up on Facebook or
Yeah.
somewhere. It's just sweet.
Zach, the next mayor, you mean?
Yes, he is definitely. Yeah, I saw he was at acting classes today. Like he
He-
needs those.
Yes, he loves that stuff. Yeah, he's going to college, UCF.
Let's give him the microphone again at July 4th. We'll see what he does this year.
I will, yeah. I mean, well, you can. The only thing I have is the Tri-County League of Cities meeting on Thursday. They're going to talk about crime prevention through environmental design and supposedly going to be directed more at council commission members. So if you're interested, I think
did
it'll be
sign up
interesting. It is in Lake Mary. Yep. Memorial Day, it was just fabulous, and I got more compliments on that, about that day and how it was run, and it was just phenomenal. It was great. And that's all I have.
Councilmember Britton, last but certainly not least.
I'm going to piggyback on the Memorial Day thing. I thought that was just absolutely outstanding. And Lars, I think a lot of credit goes to you for helping coordinate that, and certainly to Connor McFadden for
Couldn't think of Connor's name.
doing a lot of that stuff. If you folks see that young man, you just tell him how proud we are of him, because it was really a wonderful event. I want to recognize the police department. I got a note today from Chief Chudnow, and Ron, congratulations. There was a couple of arrests made recently on a group that had attempted over 50 burglaries, and I think had accomplished, 15 or 20, as well as a major arrest in a stolen car / drug operation. So I'd keep up the good work with that, guys. And finally, we haven't been here in a while, but we attended the Rotary Club movie event, and that was fun as usual. Cindy, tell Chuck thanks for coordinating and getting us all there and making us safe and have fun. So that was a good time.
Somebody kept throwing popcorn at me.
They didn't have peanuts, so you got to throw something. That's all I got.
Yeah, sort of. It was actually, the movie was good, really good. All righty, future meeting dates. Actually, it was good company. That was a very well-attended event, as it always is. Future meeting dates. We have Monday, June 24th, 5:30 p.m. work session. Monday, July 1st is now a regular session, 6:30 p.m. Monday, July 15th, regular session. Monday, July 22nd, 5:30 p.m. work session. Wednesday, July 24th, 5:30 p.m. work session. Then we're going to go through August. We have August 5th and 19th, regular sessions, and August 26th I have as another work session. I'm assuming budget.
Oh,
Final budget,
Final
hey, I
budget.
had one more thing I forgot.
Yes, go right ahead. Before I
And this was the first thing on my list. I wanted, and we talked about it earlier, that we got the grant money for the replacement of the lights at the baseball fields. I just want to thank Drew for really getting that through, and also Congressman Micah's office was very helpful. This was a federal grant that came through the state, but they were very helpful in making some phone calls to make sure it got in there and that it got reviewed and eventually it got approved. So
And Ryan Rusky was on top of it as usual.
yes, he was. So that's the way it's supposed to work. Doesn't get much better than that. So thanks.
Anything else before I adjourn? Staff, anybody? We're good? All righty, guys, meeting is adjourned about 7:45.